Yeah. Anyway, so we're back. I think this is would you call this an experimental type of recording where we don't really have any idea where we're going with this conversation?
This is a conversation.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah. So we just finished a couple of recordings on the book Flow, and there are a lot of content in there, right? And so one of them is talk about being able to get in flow while you are by yourself, being in solitude, as well as with other people. I think is important that we as individuals be able to get into flow in both situations, right? Because we're not going to be with people all the time. There will be times that we are alone for an extended period of time, and also we'll be with people. Right? We can't be alone all the time. So, what do you guys think? Like, are you able to do that? And do you find it challenging in one or the other situation?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. So first, for me, I do a lot of my best work in solitude. Right. When I'm by myself, when I'm alone, when I have a chance to sort of think and not be bothered, I'm able to get a lot done, right? But then there's another side of it, right? There's, solitude. Are you living alone? Are you by yourself? Do you have a desire to be around other people but can't because of proximity? And so there are these other questions in my mind as it relates to being in a flow state and whatnot. I think that it's very different. I think purposefully or intentionally isolating yourself is far different than just being alone, right? Or there's also this comfort in being alone, right? So being in solitude, you have to figure out how to do it, right? It's because you naturally, as humans or as animals, we naturally want to be around other people. But then how do you start to feel comfortable in being okay and for it to be acceptable to be in solitude when you want to, and then at times when you don't? And I think that becomes sort of the greater question in my mind. How do you manage solitude when you don't want to necessarily be isolated?
I think what's interesting about solitude too is, and to be in a flow state in solitude is some folks require, because one of the conditions for flow is to have clear goals, and to have challenge within the process as well. And some folks might find it more difficult when they're in solitude because there's no one holding them accountable. There's no one driving that sense of challenge or getting to the next level if you're by yourself. That there might be, you might lead a more unstructured life. Whereas flow is very structured. So, achieving flow state where you're just relying on your own resourcing, it could be a little bit more complicated if you make it complicated. I don't think it necessarily has to be. Then if you have people around you that are sort of driving you forward. And I think it works both ways. Because there are people who do the best work in solitude and in concentration to go up to a cabin and write a novel. But it also should be that in order to be in a flow state where you're able to order your mind and be in flow and in that process, is if you can only write in a very quiet environment, that you're probably a freer person if you can write on the subway, right? And I thinking of sports analogies, because we think of flow in sports and physical activity, although it extends beyond that. If you read the book, you'll see how extensive it is. But if, let's say, if you can only make the shot and have, that 150% concentration when everyone in the audience is quiet, then you're going to miss a shot a lot more than if you were able to go into flow state, and irrespective of what's going on, you could have heckling, you could have distractions, you can still make that shot. then you are probably a much more successful athlete than if you needed very specific conditions for flow. And I think part of what flow, getting into flow state or having optimal experience means is that you are able to produce flow and stay in flow irrespective of what's happening around you, whether you're alone or not alone, or whether you have noise or no noise.
I just remember something while you're talking is that when I was reading the book Flow, I noticed that I have to be in a very quiet environment. Maybe just because of how complex the content is. I just need, when I'm reading something and understanding it, I need to be in very quiet. I really don't want anyone sort of walking around, right? And then I remember at one point I was writing my thesis. I cannot write in a quiet environment. I was at home, trying to write. I just cannot do it, and I ended up doing most of my writing in a nearby Starbucks. I would sit in the corner. There'd be people walking around, some noise, people talking. In fact, sometimes I know the store manager at that time, he would come by and say hi, we'll chat, right? And then I would go back and write. I can write a lot better. And while I was writing, I was in the flow states. All those noise just kind of like fade away, right? I would just focus on my writing, and I can get into it much quicker than when I'm alone at home. Opposite when I'm reading books like that, I need quiet and no disruption. So, what you were talking is like maybe there is a place for both.
I think there is, because what you're speaking about. So like the cool coffee shop, right? Or the coffee shop where there are other people working, and you get energy from everyone else's energy, right? And because it is noisy, it challenges you to be more focused. It challenges you. Okay, I need to get rid of these other distractions. These other people are working. However, I need to be able to still get my work done irrespective of them. So do you think that it becomes a challenge? Do you think that you become focused because it's a challenge, right? Or because you're challenged to now be focused? But the energy in the room is still positive. It's still good, but you're now focused to be, you're now challenged to be focused in that environment. Because you don't want to leave. Because you got good coffee, it's a good environment, you're at peace, there's good energy around you, so you don't want to leave. So is it the challenge that's making you?
I'm not sure whether maybe it's the challenge, but also I'm thinking like maybe it's the type of thing that I was doing, because reading is more about trying to understand, and I have to obviously digest and think about stuff, and maybe I don't want to get interrupted while I'm digesting. Whereas writing is I'm formulating, I'm using maybe a different part of my brain, right, to be more creative, to formulate stuff. And to formulate stuff, maybe I do need that sort of energy around me to help me channel my creativity into words. Maybe it's the type of things that I'm doing. I guess I'm also trying to think like while I'm, let's say I'm developing, writing a piece of software, I think I did a much better job while I have Netflix going on the side, right? I'll be like binge watching. I just have the episodes just going from one episode to another on the background, and I can focus and create my piece of code much better. Right? I may not know what the story is about at the end of the whole thing, but I can get into flow a lot quicker with some noise in the background. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's the difference between trying to absorb information versus being creative and produce stuff. I need two different kind of states.
So interesting, and if you don't mind us unpacking this a bit. And so, one of the things with flow and being able to achieve flow irrespective of your environment. And, the book talks about achieving flow is not easy. It takes will. It's an act of will. It's an act of choice, and it takes discipline. And so we need practices which support us getting into flow. So can we agree that in order to be in an optimal state of experience, it shouldn't be affected or distracted by anything else? Because then it's dependent on certain external conditions for you to achieve flow. And one of the things that he talks about with flow is that some people are in traumatic situations. He's talked about jail. He talked about, I think he talked about concentration camps, and he talked about just traumatic, tragic, the most dismal of human conditions, and people within those. He had examples of people achieving flow. So I think it's the ability to achieve flow. So perhaps if we look at that you need a quiet place to read flow, is a problem that you don't have a quiet place? Or can we unpack it and look at maybe your relationship to the distractions needs to change in order for you to be able to concentrate on that? So maybe it is, having a practice that helps, because it's all about, I think he talks about flow being this internal organization of your mind, your control over consciousness. So I think what I'm hearing is that when you're reading flow and there's a distraction, you've introduced chaos.
Yes.
You've lost control of your consciousness.
My attention, I think.
Your attention.
Yeah.
But to achieve flow should not be affected by these distractions. So then would the solution be to change how you're reacting to the noise around you, to practice somehow, I use mindfulness, for instance, to be able to concentrate and have, that focused attention that isn't interrupted or affected by things that are going on.
Hey guys, of course, we are the M3 Collective. Please don't forget to like,
comment,
and subscribe.
By doing so, you'll receive notification when we drop new videos.